The most overrated player heading into next season.
Unfortunately, the answer is Ja Morant. People are ready to crown him as one of the 10 best players in the NBA. I don't know why. ESPN have him top 10. If you want to go by NBA 2K, they have him top 10. To me, he's not even a top 5 point guard in the NBA. You got Steph, Luka, Dame, Kyrie, Trae Young. To me, they're all better players than him. But he gets the highlights, he gets the dunks, he's the fast, athletic point guard. Everyone seems to love them. Memphis have been fine without him. Memphis are good with him. His impact is overstated because of the highlights he puts up and how much he's viewed on social media.
Everything that guy just says, bullshit. Thank you.
Let me start off by saying for this video, I do not have Ja Morant in my top 10 players at this current moment. But if you're someone who does, there is a very compelling argument Ja belongs in that group. As over the last 2 seasons, he's averaged 28 points per game on nearly 50% shooting. And last time we saw him playing playoff basketball, he was averaging 38 versus the Warriors and dropping 40 bombs. And I do want to remind you guys very quickly, looking at Memphis last year, they way overachieved. As coming to the year, they were projected to only win 41 games, but ended up winning 56. And looking at Ja play this year, without Jaren Jackson, he's already more confident, he's still unstoppable one-on-one, he's a top-tier player on the fast breaks, and still gets any shot he wants late in games. And as you guys saw in the intro, that one guy said Ja Morant is the most overrated player in the entire NBA because of flashy dunks, social media, and highlights. Now, to a small degree that is true, but looking at athletic point guards, we've seen Kevin Johnson, Derrick Rose, Baron Davis, John Wall, even Russell Westbrook. At this point in time, we've seen our fair share of athletic point guards, and I think with that being the case, Ja right now is definitely properly rated. Now, the one thing he did say that I pushed back on tremendously is saying Ja isn't a top 5 point guard.
Stop it. Get some help.
Of course, I'll give you Luka and Steph as locks and better point guards than Ja, but after that, it's definitely up for grabs. And at his number 3, he had Dame Lillard. And looking at Dame these past 2 years, it hasn't been the best version of Dame. Only averaging 25 points, 7 assists, 4 boards on 41% shooting. And when it comes to playoff success, since 2019, he hasn't won one playoff series. And if you want to bring up being healthy and available, Dame at this point is 32 years old and gets banged up on the regular. And for Dame Lillard standards and superstar standards, Dame these past 2 seasons has not lived up to the expectations. Now, the one major prop I will give Dame is that he is always the number 1 option on his teams, compared to someone like Kyrie Irving, who is best suited as a number 2. And if you want to talk being overhyped, being overrated, Kyrie since leaving Cleveland has been just that. As the past 5 years, he hasn't played 60 games once and has only won 2 playoff series. And if you look at Kyrie recently, when it comes to the NBA playoffs, last year versus Boston after Game 1, he was atrocious, averaging 15 points, 5 boards, 5 assists on sub-40 shooting. In Game 2, he had 10 points, Game 3, 16, and in Game 4, only 20, en route to being swept. And a fair point you could make is that Ja vs Minnesota did not have his best series. But with that being said, he was still infinitely better than Kyrie vs Boston, averaging 22 points, 11 assists, 9 boards on sub-40 shooting. And most importantly, Ja's team in that series won in 6 games. I am going to keep hammering this point home. If you have 2 guys who are very close in skill and talent, but one guy is reliable and not a distraction, I'll give that guy the edge every day of the week. Now, the 5th point guard he had ahead of Ja Morant was indeed Trae Young. And for this take, it got extra spicy as he went 3 steps further, saying Trae was clearly better.
Ja Morant being higher rated than Trae Young is just wrong. The fact that it's a 3 overall difference when Trae Young is clearly better than Ja Morant is crazy. Trae Young's a better playmaker. He's a better scorer. If you want to say Ja Morant's a better defender, then go for it. But neither of them are playing defense. And Trae Young is a more impactful player than Ja Morant. It's easily Trae Young.
Don't you hate Trae Young, Mars? I thought you always hated Trae Young. That's crazy to me.
I do. I don't like him at all. He's still better than Ja Morant.
Now, after watching that, I have many things I object to, but I will say in Trae's defense, both him and Ja on the same tier, and they're both top 15 to top 20 players. And comparing them objectively, there's no major drastic difference in what they bring to a basketball court. Now, looking at one of his first claims, he said Trae was a clear-cut better scorer. And comparing him to Ja, it's not that simple, as Ja last year was first in clutch time scoring, first in paint scoring, and 7th in fourth quarter scoring. And comparing both these players the past 2 seasons, when it comes to scoring the basketball, their splits are damn near identical. And if you look at the big time moments, the NBA playoffs, comparing both these players, Ja Morant averages more points, shoots better from the field, better from 3, better from 2, and has a higher shooting percentage. And staying with the NBA playoffs, looking at Trae last year versus the Heat, he was put under lock and key, only averaging 15 points on 32% shooting and 18% from 3. And out of his own Hawks team, he was outscored by DeAndre Hunter. I'm not saying Ja is a drastically better scorer, but comparing both these guys, there's a very real argument Ja is the better scorer compared to Trae Young. Now, the second thing I do want to address is saying Trae Young is the more impactful player. Looking at a very advanced stat, you have estimated wins added. Ja this past year averaged 3.84, and Trae Young was just behind him at 3.67. That's a very niche stat, but looking at Ja in the more traditional stats, he beats him in win shares average, box plus minus, defensive win shares, and defensive plus minus. And I do want to add once again, Memphis last year massively overachieved, winning 56 games compared to the Hawks, who won 43 in a weaker Eastern Conference. And one of the big narratives for Ja Morant that is highly annoying is saying Memphis is better without him or just as good.
Memphis have been fine without him. Memphis are good with him. His impact is overstated because of the highlights he puts up and how much he's viewed on social media.
In Memphis, they went 20-5 in games without Morant during the regular season. That's tied for the best win percentage by any team in NBA history when missing a 25-point scorer.
Whenever I hear the 20-5 argument, I automatically assume you know nothing about basketball or context or nuance. As looking at that 20-5 record, it is massively overrated and inflated by sub-500 teams. As looking at those victories, 11 of them were versus teams who did not make the playoffs. That being the Thunder, the Lakers, Sacramento twice, Portland, the Clippers, Houston, Indiana twice, as well as San Antonio. And looking at the last 9 victories versus actual playoff teams, half those are massively overrated. As when they beat Dallas, Luka Doncic, he wasn't playing. When they beat the Clippers, PG wasn't playing. When they beat Philadelphia, Embiid was out. And for the Warriors, Steph Curry was also missing. That right there is some much due context that I rarely see added in any YouTube video or on ESPN. And if you want to talk Ja's overall value out of this Memphis team, despite playing the fewest games out of any rotation player, Ja last year had the highest plus minus at 6.1. And when it came to the NBA playoffs, his plus minus went to 8.4, which is more than double the second place finisher on the Memphis Grizzlies. The bottom line being, Memphis minus Ja has no real championship hopes, compared to them with him, where they 100% have championship aspirations. Now, looking at this video in totality, my main major points to Ja Morant, he is indeed a top 5 point guard, ahead of Trae Young, ahead of Kyrie, and even Dame Lillard. And when it comes to being a top 10 player, he is right on the cusp at the 11, 12, or even 13th place. And when it comes to Ja's overall value, right now in the moment, minus Jaren Jackson, the Memphis Grizzlies are still winning games and being very competitive. And once Jackson comes back, this Memphis team hopefully will skyrocket and be in the hunt to win the championship. As for me personally, I hope Ja once and for all kills the narrative he is invaluable or is not a top 5 point guard. So with that being said, that is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.